Hey, welcome back on another episode of Tautua Talk, where we dive deep into fitness, mental health, self-development, and all things that lead us to be strong, balanced in our lives. I'm your host, Tautua, and today we've got a special guest on the show, someone I'm lucky enough to call both a friend and a coworker. Our guest today is no other than, the one and only Tyler Jones. Tyler Jones is the 3-time overall NPC Champion. He is a fellow firefighter EMT, but more importantly, he's a good friend and a loving father. Tyler has a wealth of knowledge and experience when it comes to bodybuilding and fitness, but what I love the most is his commitment towards self-growth, mental resilience, and family. Today, we're going to talk about how he balances it all, winning bodybuilding competitions, working as a fireman, but also being a very involved father. Tyler, finally, we've been talking about it for a while. Welcome to Tautua Talk. Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate that introduction.
Well, I hope I hit everything.
Hey, man, right? It's a lot.
That was one of the things when I first met you. To give you guys a quick look into it, is Tyler and I both work at the same department here locally. He came on from another larger department where we're at here in the Kansas City metro area. And you can see Tyler, if you're watching this in video format or listening, like Tyler is a large statured person. I don't think you go into many rooms where people don't notice you in there because you have a very strong and powerful physical presence. And so my first thought process when I saw Tyler was like, man, that guy definitely takes good care of himself. He's not missing any gym sessions, which is something that you can imply straight away. But I could tell that it takes a certain level of discipline, that he's got some mental fortitude. And I was like, man, I got to find out more about him. And even in our first exchange or two, I was like, man, this guy's done a lot of things. He's so much younger than me. And so I'm like motivated by that. But also the first thing someone like me thinks is like, how? Like, what did you do? What was your thoughts going behind that? And I'm just glad that I got Mr. Tyler here so he can expand on some of those things.
Absolutely. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I've always wanted to do something like this, and it's never been presented. I feel the same way about you when I met you. When we came into the academy at the new department, when I joined, when I noticed you, I felt the same way. You have very strong physical presence, very well spoken. You kind of own a room when you walk in it. And it's kind of the same way. Energies connect. But I felt like we would hit it right off the bat. And you ended up taking me on as a mentor. And I feel like that was one of the best things that, the department could have did for me when I was there. Because we definitely have a lot of like-minded ways of thinking, to say the least. Man, just knowing you in the little amount of time that I've known you, man, you've opened a lot of doors for me. You've provided me with a lot of knowledge and a lot of perspective, man. So thanks for having me, and hopefully we can tap into that stuff today.
Hey, guys, I know that Tyler is good with the words, but don't believe everything he says about me. I think he's building me up quite a bit, but I agree with him 100%. First meeting each other, I think we've kind of connected ever since, which is why I'm so glad to have you in this format so we can expand on some of those things. And we'll talk more about mentorship and some of those things that we really connect on too. But first things first, when it comes to topics, and this was for me too, is like, man, I got to get that guy's arm routine. I got to get his shoulder routine. I got to get what his philosophies are. So with that, give me an introduction. What was your motivation to get into the line of work that you're doing? You're obviously a personal trainer, fitness coach, but you're a competitor. So you've competed. How did you get into that? And we'll talk about some of the accolades that you've been able to accomplish and then what you're currently doing. So how did you start? What was your motivation on getting started?
Man, to just be fully transparent, honestly, I did grow up in the inner city of Kansas City, Missouri, born and raised. And it wasn't a lot of positive influence around. And with that being said, I had a lot of adversity in my youthful years and my teenage years. I lost some very close people to me with the environment that I grew up in. And sitting around kind of seeing what's happening to everybody, I wanted to change and I needed something positive to focus on. So I had an addictive personality. So I needed to channel that into something positive. So, I've always kind of looked at built men and men that were, physically fit and admired that. And, I always had a great amount of respect for them just based off of their physical. And that made me inclined to, want to pursue that. I didn't know how. So I just kind of one day just started doing push-ups every day, you know, and then that turned into me buying muscle magazines. And then I just wanted to know more and more. Then one day my
How,
buddy took
how
me to the gym.
how old were you at the time, and was it like, did you have like a
Man,
TV
when
show or?
I was about 19 years old, man. I was maybe 170 pounds soaking wet.
So no athletes, no wanting to look like your favorite hero or anything before that.
That was who I wanted to look like. I still look up to The Rock, man. Shout out to The
Hey,
Rock. Man, that was one of my favorite people, bro. Like, he could do no wrong. I thought everything that dude did was a shit. I would buy magazines that had him in there and seeing all the calories and all the food and everything it took to look like that. And I'm like, Jesus, I got to start making some money.
hey
I
man, I
want
got
to look
some.
like this is expensive.
So was it for? Were you a wrestling fan? Is that where you really stumbled
Yep,
onto the
that's
Rock?
where it started when I was a kid
Yeah.
watching wrestling. I was like, man, those guys look great. I was like, that's how a man's supposed to look, you know, and that might sound shallow, you know, and but it is what it is. That was my thought process when I was younger. You know, it's obvious more to being a man than just the physical stature aspect, but that's where it started, to say the least. And I was fascinated with it, man. And like I said, I had an addictive personality. So my buddy that I was in school with, he was already kind of hitting the weights. And I was just doing push-ups. And he was like, man, those push-ups are getting too easy. He's like, you need to come to the gym, get up under some weight if you want to put some real size on. So I went up to 24-hour Fitness War Parkway here in
Hmm.
Kansas City, real popular gym. Everybody and their mom went there. Very diverse crowd. You have guys fresh out of prison working out over here. You have corporate office people over here. You have young college kids over. I mean, like, you name it, all walks of life coming through there. And I kind of tried to learn from everybody. When I went to this gym with my buddy, I don't want to say the word intimidated, but I definitely felt like a fish out of water. He took me over to the bench press and he put 135 on there. That's a 45 on each side. And he started repping it out. He's like, all right, your turn. And I got it on record. Whoo. And I was like, whoa, you know, so that was the motivation right there. And I was like, man, I got to get my stuff together. And ever since then, man, I just kept going and I became more knowledgeable and I replaced some unhealthy habits that I had and kind of changed my environment, changed the people that I was hanging around. And I was just really inspired, man. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos. So this is around the time, I want to say people like CT Fletcher, Microsheet, all of those guys were, you know, doing their thing. So I was eating that up, man. And you talk about arms, that's one of the guys that I would watch, you know, and he was like, hey, you want big arms, you know, train arms every day. You know, and I didn't know I didn't know too much about the science or I didn't have much education about it. I was just kind of winging it. And I'm like, hey, these guys are big and they're saying do this, so it must work. So you know, I applied that same principle for arms. You asked about arms, and I will say in my early stages, I did hit arms every day. Now I would do chest and I would do other muscle groups, but at the end of every workout, I would spend at least 45 minutes an hour on arms, and I feel like that's what played into my arms kind of getting developed pretty quickly.
Hey,
Um,
and if you're listening in or watching, I've personally gone through some arm sessions with Tyler, and they are no joke. His approach and the amount of stimulus and reps that you go into, it's no wonder you've been able to develop what you've got right now. It hits all the right spots, and I don't think I'm going to hit an arm day with you anytime soon. I'm still recovering.
and that's what I found. Like I've had the opportunity to train with a lot of advanced athletes. And, you know, firsthand experience what it takes. You know, really change your body. And I feel like you can apply the same principle in any body part. A lot of people will never psychologically be able to tap into that because they already defeat themselves mentally. They say, "Oh, well, I have bad genetics," or you know, that doesn't. I'm just supposed to have small calves. No, you're not. You're like, try, go thrash them, go put it through hell. You know, and you'll never know until you really push the envelope. And a lot of people, they can't hit that stride, or they will for a little bit, and they understand, they realize how much work it is, and it becomes discouraging, and that's okay. But what I'm getting at is don't just never write off that you can't bring up a muscle group or a certain body part until you really, you know, give it hell. You know, that's what I like to say about any body part. And I've applied that to my legs, my calves, my back, and all of that, and that's why I've been able to be successful with bodybuilding because it's a process, and you learn
Well,
a lot about yourself.
let me dig a little bit further into that with you. You talked a little bit about your first experience going to the gym. I believe it was your cousin that took you and threw on the weights, and then that's when you dropped to your chest. Your first experience with the bench press.
Mm-hmm.
When did it feel like it started to click? And what were you feeling? What was your thought process when you're like, all right, well, that makes sense?
Well, I developed a strong passion for it right then and there. I was about to graduate high school and I knew I needed something. I was like, let me make a living out of this. So I went and got certified as a trainer. I learned a lot about nutrition and different movements and body mechanics and stuff like that, obviously. But I say applied knowledge, man, being around seasoned athletes, seasoned competitors, and just having that opportunity. So you really want to take advantage of the people around you that are actually walking the walk and, not just talking. That's when it started clicking for me. Actually trying these different theories, sticking with something long enough. That's when I realized, hey, I need to be splitting up muscle groups, splitting up body parts, recovery, food intake, protein intake, all of that matters. Because at first I was like, hey, eat big, get big. So I would eat crap. And, you did it too. Everybody's done that. We all started out, oh, I want to be big, eat everything under the sun and just do 5x5. And yeah, you get big, but it wasn't the look that I wanted. So I had to really change my way of thinking of what big was. Because a lot of us, we see big and, he's big, but he take his shirt off, it's water and fat, And if you're happy with that, whatever floats your boat. But me, I wanted to be healthy. And when I didn't have that healthy approach and it wasn't clicking, I was just doing freestyle, eating as much food as whatever I had, high blood pressure. I get headaches and stuff like that. I was massive, but I wasn't healthy. So, going to personal training school and, learning about the science behind it and things like that, that's when it really started clicking for me. And I started working with different people through the gym and different clients and different people from walks of life and age groups and things like that. And learning about them and, different health conditions. And then, getting on the fire department, becoming an EMT, learning about more about the body chemistry and how the body operates. It all just kept clicking. So I like to say it's still clicking. It's forever clicking. It's an ongoing clicking process, if you will, because I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly being a student of the game, and I'm constantly trying to evolve with everything that I do with fitness. So, but I want to say, I started at 19 when I was about 21. That's when it really started setting in, and people were like, "Man, do you compete? You should probably compete." And people started asking me about it, so it kind of sparked the idea. I was like, maybe I, probably get on stage one of these days or something.
And what would you say was the hardest part of that process, actually going from, all right, I just want to work out a bit, to actually really dialing it in and figuring out, all right, I want to get to the point where I'm competing?
Man, honestly, I was scared. That was not on my radar at all. I will say I've always had a competitive spirit. So, I do have a background with football. I was a decent linebacker. And I've always had that competitive edge. So as I kept developing and, following different bodybuilders and things like that, I started living the lifestyle. And I just had a lot of people around me like, man, you got something special. You need to get on stage. You got a potential pro package and things like that. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know if that's really my thing. I don't want to wear those little shorts and get up on stage in front of people, damn near naked. From my background and my environment, how I came up, my buddies are going to be like, dude, what are you doing? That's weird. You know what I'm saying? So it was a big culture shock, just the whole competing environment. Even though I admired it, me personally doing it, fish out of water experience. I did the KC Natural. Soldier Boy was actually here, 2014. Law Payne, if anybody is in Kansas City, shout out to Law Payne. He's a big name in the fitness community here in the Kansas City area, but he put that fitness show on and I did physique and I ended up getting second place. And that's where it started.
That was your first show ever?
Yeah, that was my first show. And I wore the board shorts, physique, because I didn't have any legs then, man. I was top heavy. I had the prison build and I was like, all right, I just got to wear the shorts and get up there and walk. Okay, cool. So that was cool, man. And that was a great learning experience too. I got second place and I was kind of bummed out. I'm competitive. We all want to win. I thought, an unhealthy mindset, but I'm just be fully transparent. I was like, man, I'm gonna suck at this. I lost. It's my first show, dude. But in my mind, I was like, man, this ain't for me. And I did get feedback from the judges, and they were like, man, you actually look really good. You're really muscular. And it was like, you're actually too muscular for a men's physique. And that is part of why you got second place. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's when I was like, man, do I stick with this physique thing or do I try to grow into another class? I didn't want to put limitations on myself. But at the same time, I wasn't in a big hurry to compete against. So I will say pain and disappointment is the greatest teacher because even though that was an unfortunate day, in my opinion, because I didn't get the result that I wanted, it sparked something in me. I didn't know that I wanted to compete again, but I knew I wanted to be better. And I knew that I needed to be better, significantly better, before I even think about making that approach again. So I just went back to the drawing board and, focused on getting more educated about how to grow healthy muscle tissue, how to look the part of what these judges are looking for with the different categories and things like that. And I want to say when I turned, I was like 27, and that was 2018. So 4 years later, Muscle Mayhem is a big show bodybuilding show in Kansas City. Muscle Mayhem comes here to Kansas City, and I signed up to do Classic Physique. And this is when Classic Physique is like first really up and coming, and it's a new class, and they're still trying to figure out what they're looking for and things like that. It's kind of mimicking old school bodybuilding, if you will. So I'm not like a super big guy, not
Yep.
freaked by any means, but I've got nice aesthetics and small waist in the classical lines and stuff like that with the symmetry and proportions. And I was like, they wear briefs. I was like, so I don't have to wear the other thing. I was like, I could probably mess with that. So I ended up playing with the idea, and then a guy came and approached me and was like, hey man, you should definitely do that show. He just kept pushing. He's like, you know what? Let me coach you. He was like, I'll coach you. He was like, no charge, just do the show and just let me coach you. So I was like, all right, man, we'll see. And I ended up prepping for that show, and man, I got second place again. But I lost against a guy that was really good, and he's a national competitor, and he's doing pretty well. And I was able to look and say, hey, if I'm going to lose to anybody, that's not a bad person to lose to. So it was a humbling experience, a learning experience. But that time I was like, because it was more of a competitive setting, and I did progress, and it was my first show, I was like, you know what? I kind of like, because a lot of pro bodybuilders come to Muscle Mayhem. So I was able to see a lot of pros in person. I got to be backstage with a lot of pros, kind of see these guys firsthand, man. And I don't know anybody that's ever experienced that. That right there alone set a fire in you. So I was like, man, I got to figure this stuff out. And what it was that time, it was nailing the conditioning. And I was like, man, what's conditioning? I was like, I'm lean. What are you talking about conditioning? But no, when I learned what they were really looking for, that's when I was like, okay, I got to really, really invest in, learning more about this, maybe even get another coach. And that's kind of what I did, man.
Let me touch on a couple of things I think you highlighted while going through that, because there were questions that came up in my mind. I'm sure people listening in or watching in would have the same questions. And so you had mentioned, all right, at some point in that transition, you had reached out, or actually he reached out to you on the coaching side. So someone that was experienced and knowledgeable in this arena you were trying to go into reached out and offered that help. But then you also touched on, after getting some coaching, having just gone through that experience, even though you weren't able to pull off the win, that was a big value portion of it that you got back, just being around those guys, seeing the preparation it took to get to that point, and then experience it really fired you up, is what you said. What would you say as far as the benefits to getting mentorship or coaching, how that changed your projection through that, then also going through those experiences as far as learning on that side for someone who might be a little off on, I don't need to do coaching, I can figure this out on my own. What benefits did you notice after that? And would you recommend somebody do that first or try to figure it out themselves?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point you bring up. I was hard headed, so I was like, man, I've read all the muscle magazines. I went to YouTube University. I'm fit. I've got big on my own. I'm getting second place. I know. Actually, no, I don't know shit when it comes to bodybuilding, and you'll find that out the hard way if you're really passionate about it and you want to, be successful in it. You got to kind of humble yourself and realize, hey, there's people that's been doing this longer, and there's people that are coaches for a reason, and that's why. If you want to do well at anything you do, it'll be worth your while to invest in a coach. And it might be an investment right now, but it actually save you a lot of time and money down the road. And I'm thankful, and I was able to have some success due to hiring great coaches. One of them, Joseph Cortez, he's out of San Antonio, Texas. I learned a lot from that guy. As far as competing, that's when I really made the switch and was able to wrap my head around why coaching is important. And then not only that, we see ourselves every day. It's either two ways with that. You're either going to be really hard on yourself or you're going to lie to yourself. It's rarely ever accurate in between. So especially in the phase where the nutrition gets to the point where your mental is kind of lagging a little bit and you're just really exhausted because you're so depleted, it really helps to have that coach and have that second set of eyes to kind of look at you and say, hey, man, you need to up food, or you need to bring this up, bring that up. It's a lot of value in that, but you have to be humble. You have to be open-minded. You have to be coachable. Being coachable is a big part of it too, because you can hire a coach, but if you're not coachable, what's the point in that? Because I see that a lot in our industry. People will hire a coach, but they will still want to rely on everything that they know and they learn on the internet. That's just not a good mix. So definitely hire a coach. There's a lot of value in that. If I didn't hire a coach, I wish I would have hired one sooner.
What were some of the key qualities that convinced you that Coach Cortez was the one for you at the time? Or what were some of the things that you saw in his personality or his work style that you thought to yourself, I think this could benefit me a lot when it came to Coach Cortez in that experience?
Well, man, Cortez is a man, a hard worker is an understatement. This guy, he ran a gym, he drove trucks, and he competed, and he had anywhere from 15 to 30 competitors up under his belt. Some of them were pros, some of them were competing at the Mr. Olympia contest, and I was able to see that on his stories and on his Instagram every day. He'd be in the trenches training with his athletes, and he really cared, and he had a very hardcore approach, no bullshit approach, and I identify with that. You get out what you put in, and yeah, we just clicked really well. Our personalities clicked really well. I'd like to say what really drew me to him was his success, that he had with his other athletes. He had, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he had a few guys that were doing really good, and they were going places that I wanted to go, right? So I just felt like he was the guy. And we just had, like, kind of how we're talking, we just had a real conversation one day, and he kept it real with me about things that I needed to do and things I needed to work on. And man, it's a great experience. But the thing is, like, what I share with people, that it was very knowledgeable, it was very valuable, but it was very simple. And what it really boiled down to was just following it. Like seeing something and you're like, man, this doesn't look fun. Or like, man, what is it? Really? That's it. That's the plan. Just do it. And things tend to go really smooth. And I'm kind of that kind of student when I have a teacher, if you will. Like I'll ask appropriate questions and I'll definitely ask what I need to know. But I'm kind of just shut up, head down, and just follow what I need to do. And it was a great formula.
I think that what you just touched on rings true on the coaching side. So a good coach is also someone who's a very, very good student. So that's someone who's able to ascertain that information, but also since they're always a student, they're able to understand what the student is needing and have a acceptable way of presenting that information so that you're able to understand it. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, all day. Yep.
And you also alluded to it was important to you, whether you knew it or not, that one of the reasons why Coach Cortez seemed like a really good fit for you is because you've seen his body of work. You saw that he had proven results with his people, just the results alone and his experience level and being able to replicate that over and over. Would you say that added to some of the confidence for you actually taking him on as a coach?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always refreshing to see a person telling you what to do, walking the walk, right? So, yeah. Man, all day. And since we're talking about coaches, the following coach I worked with, just for another perspective, nothing went left with Cortez or anything like that. We're still good buddies to this day. In this industry, it's constantly evolving. I'm a sponge. I want to learn as much as possible. There was a gentleman by the name of Patrick Moore. Now, I had BB Pro that I had previously been trying to work with, but he was busy actually competing at the Mr. Olympia, placing ninth, and he had a lot of big things going on. So when I was trying to work with him around that time, it just didn't work. But when I wanted to go to that next level and I was getting ready to compete again, I had reached out to him on a humbug just on one of his stories one day, kind of joking and kind of threw it out there. I was like, man, maybe you'll coach me one day. And then we just hit it off. And I got the privilege and opportunity to be coached by Patrick Moore. Shout out to Patrick Moore. He always jokes and says, he says, I'm Phil Jackson, you're Kobe. And I feel like that's kind of definitely how that dynamic went. And, working with somebody that you admire, man, that'll spark a fire. I admire this guy and all the things that he was doing and, watching him. And now I'm like, man, somebody I really look up to, somebody that I'm trying to aspire to be like in this sport anyway. I'm talking to him on a day-to-day basis now, and I'm learning stuff that's gotten him really far. That was a really, really great experience, to say the least.
If you had to give some value to somebody either listening in or watching this, what are some key qualities they should look for in a coach when looking to ascertain coaching? And then also, what are some things to avoid? You've been in the coaching space a while now, so there are some things that would make this person a really good coach. What are some things they should avoid too when looking for a coach?
Absolutely. That's in every profession. You got good and bad, right? I say good things. So anytime you have questions, look for honest answers. Have a sense of discernment, if you will. So if you ask a question and they don't have the answer, a good coach will say, hey, I don't know. I've done that. But guess what? I'll find the answer for you. I'll help you find the answer. But a coach that is humble enough to know that, everybody's different. Everybody's body operates a little bit different. So I can't apply this one-size-fits-all approach to everybody's lifestyle. So a coach is going to take the time to understand you, understand your day-to-day life, understand your daily patterns, your routine. and kind of coordinate a plan around those things is an ideal coach, because they care about setting something up realistic for you to be successful, opposed to saying, hey, do this and there's no other way. Like, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, in my
Yeah.
opinion, most people don't operate like that. So a coach that's willing to understand how you think, and also, we're not therapists by any means, but they should care about your mental health. They shouldn't be a therapist, but if you guys can have good conversations about mental health and things that have helped me with, mental health adversities or mental roadblocks when it comes to my own fitness goals, because if this ain't right up here, you got to have this right to do anything. So a coach that cares about those aspects is definitely going to be a great coach. And a lot of the stuff we said earlier, proof of work. Yeah, you're saying this all day, every day, but, are you walking the walk? How do you look? Every coach doesn't have to look like a, really jacked bodybuilder getting ready to go to Olympia or anything like that, but you should look like you live a healthy lifestyle. I think that's important. I wouldn't want to go hire a broke accountant, so you
I would
shouldn't
hope
want to
not.
hire an out of shape personal trainer. That is just as simple as that. Somebody that I think personality should mesh to an extent. You don't want a yes man. You don't want somebody that's going to say, oh, yeah, you can do that and it's okay. You can have this cheat. You can just do it for the sake of just keeping you happy and keeping you as a client. You want somebody honest that can communicate that criticism and that strong love in a way where you don't feel like it's tearing you down, but at the same time, y'all can have that relationship where you can be brutally honest with one another. That's a great coach. So now I'll talk about red flags
What are
there.
some of the top things we should avoid? So, like, what are some immediate red flags that should get you to be like, one, your sensor should go up, but it should be automatic disqualifier for someone looking for a coach. And it don't have to be anything bad, but it just be something in your experience. Like, hey, maybe if someone isn't honest with you right away, if they don't have proven results, or if they, I don't know, try to get your credit card number before they even get to know what your name, like that, those sort of things.
If they don't spend time explaining the value of what they're offering, if they can't explain to you what you're getting and why you're doing what you're doing, I think that's a red flag. If it's just a vibe where it's kind of like, hey, this is that, just do this and pay me, you definitely, obviously, that's common sense. You want to avoid that. We got fitness coaches, right? We got lifestyle coaches. We got bodybuilders. So it's red flags in all of those. That's the one I'm most familiar with. So I say you want to avoid coaches that are like, hey, and they don't care about your health. All they care about is, putting something in your body to get something fast to say, hey, look at what we did in the process. You wreck your health. They're not even informed about what they're doing themselves, but they're trying to tell you to put something in your body, and now your health is ruined. And I think coaches like that absolutely suck, because you're ruining people's lives and ruining people's families and ruining people's health. If you're not educated about something, you shouldn't be telling somebody to do it. You should definitely be telling people about the risk, the side effects, risk to reward ratio, how it can affect you, not just physically, not just internally health, but mentally too. I think a solid coach with any athlete, depending on what level, should always explain the good and the bad to their athlete or their everyday lifestyle client.
Yeah, and that's one of the major things that stuck out with me when we've had some talks, obviously off camera. One of the highlights that you've told me when it comes to coaching is some coaches, and if I'm using your words correctly, you said they would starve their athletes to get the result, and they don't care. So they would have them do this very, very restrictive diet, have them feel like shit, but be able to get the result. Of course, because they starved their athlete. Anybody can figure that out. Eat a whole bunch less, restrict yourself heavily, cut the water, cut this. You're going to make the weight. But it's not exactly the
You'll
most
make the weight.
ethical
Not trying
way.
to cut you off. You'll make the weight all day.
Yeah.
You restrict yourself so low,
Yeah.
and that's just a crash course right there. And that's that one size fits all strategy right there. And that's a coach that's being lazy, not taking the time to learn your body, because there's 1,000 ways to skin that cat.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to preserve muscle tissue. So just telling somebody, hey, low calorie and suck them down real fast. Yeah, on the scale, you'll be lighter, but I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, that person is not happy with how they look.
Most definitely. That comes and shows a ton of experience. So in review, when looking for a coach, some key things you should look for is definitely that the coach you're looking to get has the experience, that they're knowledgeable, and that they have a good reputation within their industry, whether it's fitness, nutrition, business. You don't want a broke accountant being the one running your books, for sure. The next would be that you feel like this person is honest and forthright. Do they have a good moral compass? Because as you allude to on the red flag side, is that those guys don't care. They just want the result. They maybe not necessarily cared about the athlete themselves. The other thing is that this person communicates well as far as a good
one.
right. Like you had said, you got somebody that will just reach out to you once in a while. Yep. Go ahead and pay for it and maybe reach out once in a while. But a good coach is going to establish a good line of communication with their athlete and the person that they're coaching to make sure that they're doing well. One of the last highlights you said is, do they care about this person's mental health? They take a holistic approach to coaching these athletes. Yeah, we want to ascertain a certain result, but I want to make sure that this athlete gets away from this afterwards, after the competition or whatever you put them through the programming, that they are still fundamentally sound for their family, their career, and things that happen outside the gym. When it comes to the red flags, honesty, but also make sure that you mesh well personality-wise with your coach, that they have a good, proven, solid track record. This is another place where your reputation precedes you. If you hear a whole bunch of bad reviews on somebody, there might be something to it. So that's to leave you to do some research. But make sure that this person knows what they're talking about and that they care about the athlete at the end of the day. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I'll go every day, man, for sure. It's just having real conversations. We call them consultations, but when I do consultations, it's just real conversations. Why are we here today? What are your expectations? Because I might not be the person for you, and that's okay. But I think that's another good sign of a coach, even if they're working with them, that they can say, I've had certain people that meet with me, they're like, man, I really want to work with you, but I want to do a CrossFit-based program. I don't know shit about CrossFit. Like, I'm going to say, hey, I'm not your guy, but Joe Schmo down the street, he has a really good CrossFit program. I think just that integrity goes a long way with coaching. So, and that's a sweet network right there. So even though I pass them along, somebody that wants to do bodybuilding down the road that they know, they'll say, hey, go see Tyler. You know what I'm saying? Just being real about what they can offer you. And if they can't, just saying, hey, I'm not that person. I mean, honest conversations, because if I sit down with somebody and you're like, hey, 30 days, I just had this the other day. I had a guy. He's an artist. He does concerts and stuff, but he's like, I want to look this certain way in 30 days when I start my tour. And I'm like, brother, it doesn't work that way. I was like, we can sit down and we can look at this. And, me and him are kind of going back and forth right now about that. He was like, man, I hate what you told me. He was like, I feel like I could do it in 30 days. I was like, you could lose 20 to 30 pounds in 30 days. Absolutely. But will you like how you look? Probably not. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you can do it. I didn't say you couldn't do it, but it's a way to skin that cat. So, just kind of really painting that picture for people so they know what they're getting into and being more realistic with themselves, instead of just saying, yeah, man, I can do that in 30 days. Come on, I'll give you the best body. You'll have the abs and everything, bro. Let's do it, and get a quick money real quick. No, and that's part of that reputation you were talking about, right? You know what I'm saying? So if you start doing that over time, you'll make a lot of money, but you'll have a shitty reputation, and then, what's the value in that? That's short lived. And I'm doing things, that's in a way kind of like a dynasty, if you will, and that's my reputation that's going to be passed down to my children, that's going to linger. So when I'm retired and I look back, I had a really positive effect and outlook on the fitness community. And that's what I like to say at the end of the road. Like, man, that dude really cared. And he cared way more about my fitness. He cared about my mental health. And that's what helped me go the extra mile.
I think that just speaks volume about your character, but that's also something you look for in other people. So this person worried about the get rich quick scheme. Sure, they can do any program that you want them to do as long as you hand over a credit card, but they may end up not having that knowledge. I think it shows more character to admit that, all right, that's not my style of training and that's not a good expectation. I'll refer you to someone who does. I think that builds better trust and your legacy too as well, because if you think about it, I turn this athlete down. I can't do that. That's not a realistic expectation. Even though you didn't get the business, that they'll tell to other people that, hey, this guy was at least honest with me. I offered him a bunch of money, had said we can get these results. And he said, no, he's just honest. I think people can appreciate just being real.
People remember bad experiences, unfortunately, way better than they remember good ones. So if I can just keep a whole bunch of good ones, I think I'm doing something right. Really try our best, but end of the day, you're not going to make everybody happy. And I think it's important for a client and a coach to know that you can't make everybody happy. That's another side of it. But we can just put our best foot forward and do the things that we mentioned to be our best and just enjoy the journey.
I like that. That's a nice way to segue into the next part. We've done a ton of talking about the coaching side. I think we highlighted some good things, the good things to look for, things to avoid, some of your experiences when you were new. But if you don't mind, I'd like to actually look at your profile and just have you give quick, brief explanations about where you were in your journey. If that's all right with you, share a little bit of your.
Absolutely, absolutely, for sure.
And me too. I just want to know, I'm like, what were you going through? What competition was this? And this is the first time you trying this on here. Let's see. And this is what we're going to share. We're going to share your profile. So can you see this pulled up on your side? Okay. And so anybody watching in on this, you could tell, obviously, Coach Tyler Jones knows what he's talking about because he's been there and he's done that. He's lived it. Currently on his Instagram, I believe, where you around 17,000, 18,000 followers on your verified account, getting a ton of engagement, but it doesn't take you long. And when you talk about experience and has this person done it before, they're getting proven results. I think this is one of your clients, but I want to pull up one of the pictures I found pretty impressive and just give me a little bit of a backstory on this because you just look absolutely massive. The lighting's right on point. I mean, you look like you're ready to step on stage. Like, where are you at in the process? Campaign? Bring the beard back.
Well, man, I had been off the
Talk
fire
me through.
department. I was on the fire department for about 6 years at the time, and then I had stepped away. So, man, I went in crowds like, man, I grow my beard out. You know, we got that grooming policy; you can't have a beard. So, I was happy to grow that beard out. But yeah, that picture right there, man, I think I was probably maybe, man, correct me if I'm wrong. My memory's trash, but I was probably like 2 weeks, a week out right there from the Omaha Pro.
Let's see.
And I was working with Patrick Moore. This was the Omaha Pro last year, 2023. I won the overall in classic bodybuilding, and I also won men's super heavyweight bodybuilding at that same show. So I did both classes and was able to be successful. Yep, that's the Omaha Pro. So that's the overall when I won classic. Yeah, wow. Man, great show. There's a lot of people there.
Here's the two separate shows.
2021. Walk us through the differences. That's the Battle of Sioux Falls in South Dakota. National qualifier. Okay. So I had did men's super heavy open bodybuilding, and I had won the overall there. And then I had also did classic and won the overall in classic. So 2 times I've done men's super heavyweight bodybuilding and classic in the same show and won the overall in both categories, which is that felt pretty good.
And, you know, I've never competed. I don't coach for competing. I've done a couple of sessions with you. I attempted to do some posing. Tell me, what is the difference between this picture and here? Because obviously you're the same person, but you look absolutely massive on here. Is this part of your angling? Obviously, it's 2 years later and you've added some mass, but what would you say the difference is between you doing this show here in 2021 and then 2023? Is it some of your posing, some of the approaches you took? Like, what are the big differences for you that you personally?
I should develop more muscle tissue, so you've got to account that when you go into posing, right? Posing is going to be a little bit different with a different package. So initially, 2018, one of the reasons that I had got second, feedback I got was like, hey, you need to work on your posing. So I bought a really good package, but I got knocked from my posing. I was like, never again. The worst thing you can do is spend a lot of time getting ready for something suffering, and then when it's time to present it, get knocked because you're not presenting it right. That's a crappy feeling. So I just spent a lot of time posing. I hired me a posing coach, and we spent hours and hours practicing posing. It was very uncomfortable. It wasn't a natural feeling for me. I already hate being on stage in front of people with no clothes. So you throw in the awkwardness of, hey, man, you got to really squeeze right here, sit down. And I didn't know posing was so exhausting.
And that's for someone who's recently just done, we've had one posing session. It is not for the faint of heart. This looks like you're just up there smiling, putting your arms up, but actually posing, holding the pose, having a muscle-mind connection to contract the right muscles, hold your posture upright. It's a workout in itself. The session we had, I think I probably went a little too hard, but for those of you who don't know about posing, it's not an easy thing to do, especially to pose well. I think it's what makes it such a intriguing thing for me is that, well, you can't just go out there and flex. You've got to put your angles right. There's a lot of technique that goes into it, and there's almost like a routine to it. So it's almost
if you prep correctly and you got in shape, you'll find yourself cramping up because you're so depleted. A lot of people don't know. I'm up there smiling and we look good, but 9 times out of 10, we got nasty cramps and we're lightheaded. We got a headache, so you feel like you're worse. You look the best when you feel your worst, unfortunately, in this game. Being able to block that out and hold the smile and still be presentable, even though you're god awfully uncomfortable, that's why preparation is key. But yeah, I would highly recommend hiring a posing coach and learning what angles work best for you. So me, I know you use the side chest pictures a lot. A lot of people tend to cinch down and sit down low when they do their side chest, you don't want to do that. You want to stand up nice and tall. And I learned that I want to rotate and I want to show everything. So all of my strong points, I want to put that on display. You don't really want to hide that. So just kind of being self-aware and knowing what your strengths are. And you want to play on those when it's time to pose and when it's time to compete.
That makes a lot of sense. And that actually is a perfect segue into my next part. Again, when you got into posing, you said at some stage you were just kind of going at it and you eventually went into and hired an actual posing coach. So there's a coach for your fitness stuff, and then the posing side of it was almost completely separate. But you sought out somebody that has more experience and more proven results in that particular area, your competition, and that allowed you to grow your repertoire and your experience level when it comes to doing what you're doing. With that said, there's a self-development part and a personal growth part, because you had obviously went from, all right, I don't need coaching, I can figure this out with YouTube University, to where, all right, I need to find this experienced coach that can help me in the areas that I'm lagging. You obviously had some growth and there's some development there. Let's talk about, and in your words, like, what are some of the things that people can do to continually learn and improve? And what's the importance of self-development when it comes to fitness alone that you've noticed?
Man, I say just being open-minded and remaining open-minded, and being cool with knowing that you don't know everything. That's okay. And it's okay to not have everything figured out. I think that part alone is where you start, right? And just having an initiative to get better and wanting to learn more, because we all have choices. So if you're aware that you have a passion and you have a niche for something that you want to do, you have to respect that, right? And what I mean by that, if you don't respect your goal, you're not going to, take the time to realize all the key factors and variables that it takes to reach your goal. So you're not going to invest properly in your goal. So then you kind of lose your passion. And I feel like that's one of the worst things that can happen to anybody in life. So sit down, understand your goal, respect your goal, and then chip away at it. Start by planting seeds, day by day, planting seeds. Like Will Smith says, lay that brick, one brick at a time. That's some of the realest stuff ever. And just build on that brick. And just enjoy the process, right? Because it is a passion. So we tend to get a little stressed because we want to do really well, but keep in mind, we're supposed to be enjoying this. This is our passion. So try to find some fun in it. Try to find some gratitude. Understand that it's a privilege. Your goal is a privilege. There's a lot of people that would love to have the opportunities that you have. I think being aware of that and taking advantage of that is key too. You know what I mean? I think perspective goes a long way in that light.
Yeah. You touched on it real early in the interview. Do you feel like your upbringing, you went through a bunch of challenges in life? You alluded to some of those things that you had just made it through. Would you consider that one of the contributing factors that benefited you when it came to bodybuilding, as in being able to channel everything into bodybuilding? And if so, for someone who maybe hasn't had experiences like that, is it necessary? And is there a way to cultivate that type of mindset from a coaching perspective?
For sure, it's just identifying, right? My number one rule is what makes you happy? You know what I'm saying? What can you live with? What can you go to sleep with every day knowing like, okay, this is okay with me. This is how I want. And if you go to sleep and you're in question, you in doubt, you need to go back to the drawing board. That's where it starts. Me personally, I've seen the results of the environment that I was in to other individuals. And God blessed me with a brain, right? So I'm like, hey, if I sit in this barbershop long enough, I'll probably end up getting a haircut.
Sure, man, I know my lines.
I think that alone, right? So pain is, they say it all the time, pain is the greatest teacher. Growing up in that environment, I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of hardships. I lost a lot of friends. I've seen a lot of sad stories. And I feel like anytime God or the universe, to whoever, whatever you believe in, is giving you that angle and that view, you have that intuition for a reason. You have to pay attention to that, and that's where it starts. Listen to that inner voice, because that's the real you. Not what so-and-so saying over here, not what they're saying on the internet, you, because you're going to have to live with that. So I think identifying that is going to be the staple to overcoming any adversity, because we could be in the midst of adversity and crappy lifestyle, crappy patterns and stuff like that. But if you like that stuff and that's fulfilling to you, no matter what I say, no matter what Kia says, no matter what anybody says, that's what it's going to be, because that's your passion. That's what you're drawn into. So, what matters to you? Again, I'll keep coming back to that. How do you want your life to look? What matters to you? And me personally, I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I wanted to be healthy. I knew that I wanted to be fit. I knew that I wanted to gain respect based off of my physical presence alone, because that's a conversation starter. Like you said at the beginning of the conversation, somebody can see one that's physically fit already. Just that alone is going to demand respect, and that's going to open a lot more doors for you. That's going to boost your confidence in a lot of different settings, and it has. It just opens up so many doors. It's just really about identifying what you want, because we all go through different things and it all affects us in different ways. And all of our adversities are significant to each of us. So it really boils down to what can you live with, And me personally, I wasn't okay with living with, with the environment I was in and the people around me. I wasn't okay with that outcome. So I did everything. I used that as fuel. I always thought about that every day. Like, I'm one step away from being back on Section 8. I'm one step away from being back on welfare. One step away from eating top ramen, every night, or warming up pots of water to take baths, or using candles. Growing up like that, man, seeing my mom struggling, seeing the adversities my dad had went through, I felt like God was giving me a front row seat. So, like, hey, man, if you don't get your shit together, you don't figure out some type of plan, it's going to be you too. And if that's not motivation, I don't know what is,
That's one of the most fascinating things I find about you, Tyler, to make it personal, is that you've been through so many things in your life and you have this uncanny, unwavering ability to mold it into a positive. I can say, honestly, if you're listening in or watching this too, that Tyler's always had this upbeat, positive outlook. It's not because the camera's on. Trust me, we spend a lot of time together outside of here. But that's one thing that fascinates me about you. How do you do it? Tell me, are there some daily habits you do? Is there something you do daily that helps you keep your mindset and your positive outlook? And if it is, what are some of the things you suggest to other people who maybe admire that or would like to ascertain that ability that you have?
So, things that I do daily, right? Obviously, I go to the gym and work out and eat healthy. That's obvious. And all of those things are very therapeutic for my health and my mental health. But after doing that for so long, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something somebody doesn't talk about. So if you're a
Mm.
person and you've had an outlet like working out or something, and you've been doing that for so long and you've been successful with it and you've reached your goal so many times with that, life will throw different adversities and hurdles at you. So that outlet that you once had is not as much as an outlet as it once was. And then it's like, oh crap, like, dang, I'm not getting the same relief that I was getting from this like I was before. What do I do now? Oh, okay, I got to start working on this thing. So reading. I wouldn't say I do it every day, but I started reading different books. One by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's called Becoming Supernatural. Are you familiar?
Joe Dispenza, I do like a lot of his. I haven't read the book. I've read some inserts and a bunch of his motivational speeches, some of his presentations.
Well, people like him. So, he taps into the whole we are reflections of our experiences. Our perspectives are based off of our past experiences. So I think, me personally, every day I look at those past experiences and I gauge whether am I living and am I making decisions and am I living in a way that's based off of my past experiences? Because if I am, guess what? I'm going to reflect past experiences for my future experiences. And that's the last thing I want to do. So every day I try to ground myself with that and understand that my mind and how I think is a huge part of, ultimately what I'll experience as far as business, friendships, relationships, and even adversities and situations with my family and my kids. Every day I try not to get caught up in my past experiences. I try to have an open perspective and create a positive environment around me, at least mentally and spiritually, and stay in that space. And I say daily, I do a lot of reflecting. Like I said
Mm.
earlier, like, I don't want to go back to that place, and just remembering where you came from every day, remembering where you came from. And then last but not least, if I had to wrap it up with one, your why.
Yeah.
And your why might change several times over the years. I know mine did. I know when I first started, my why wasn't my kids. I didn't even have kids. So my why then was just simply getting out the hood and not ending up dead or in prison.
That's a pretty good reason.
So then it's like, okay, cool. So now what's my why? Like, it's like, dang, okay, cool, bro. That's average citizen stuff right there. You shouldn't be so satisfied with that. So now what I'm saying is your why will change. So then my why changed again. Okay, I want to be successful. I need to make some money. I want to have a family. I need to be in position to be able to be a man, be a provider, and all of these things that I should be. And fatherhood got introduced to me, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. But then my why became my children. Just knowing your why will constantly change, but identify that why every day, and I feel like you'll never drift away.
So find some time for self-reflection, bring in those previous experience and know that you're learning from them, mold those into your outlook, and know that you are your thoughts. So if you believe that, all right, I can never do this, I can't achieve this goal, that, well, yeah, you're going to be right. If you say that you can't do it, you're obviously not going to be able to do it because you already destroyed that goal before you got going. But you led right into a good thing where you talked about your why. Beforehand, it was getting out of the hood, staying alive, staying out of jail, staying out of trouble. And now your why is completely different. If I may share this with everybody else, that we've had this talk often. And one of the things, again, that amazes me about you is that you've been through some family things through your life. And any one of those situations, without getting too far into the details, would have me completely out of sorts. It'd be hard to even get to work dealing with some of the things you've dealt with in the past. And knowing that family is your motivation, what's your perspective on being a father and the importance of being a good role model for your children, and how that leads into your motivation and why you're able to continuously do what you do?
So many thoughts is racing when you say that. I don't even know where to start. I'm do my best. But man, just simple, right? Just looking at your offspring, looking at your kids, and looking at them face to face, and it's like, man, this is a byproduct of me. I'm responsible for this person, how they think, how they treat people, how they develop their outlook on life. That man, that's a lot. Man, that's a lot because you think about you when you were a little person, right? And you're like, man, who did I need when I was little? I didn't have that person. So I don't even know if I can be that person. You know what I'm saying? My heart is in the right place. I want to do the best job. I want to do amazing at it. I love my kids. You know, people often say I'll die for my kids. That's fine, and I thumbs up to that. But I want to live for my kids, and I want to live effectively for my kids, and I want to be effective. I don't want to just be a parent and be a present parent. I want to be a parent that's actually pouring good things into them that are going to develop them as good people in the world and society when they get older. So yeah, just to piggyback on that alone right there is what I get hung up on the most, is making sure that I'm being a great example, right? Because kids are smart, they pay attention, they can't bullshit a kid, man. So making sure that I'm being a good example, I'm doing things where I'm being a man of my word, I'm having integrity. All of those things, man, play a huge part into fatherhood, and I think, man, this is kind of emotional, man, because of what I'm going through. So my bad for kind of stalling real quick. I just got so many thoughts.
It's all good. And I can guide this a little bit because you draw a bunch of good conclusions there, which is why I think you're such a good coach. We didn't name that as one of the things to look for in a coach, but I think that's something that someone should personally take into consideration when it comes to fatherhood. A lot of things you were explaining there remind me a lot of the coaching outlook and approach that you take. Does this person care? Does this person want to foster a growing, am I setting a good example? You stated that many times. I don't want an accountant that's broke. They're obviously not setting a good example. So from your moral fabric, I can see that as a person and as a father, it translates very well into your coaching side of it, which is why I think you're so effective, because you're not just thinking about this 12-week program. You're thinking about how this is going to improve this person. Are you the right person? Are you setting the example for them? And are you worthy to be in that coaching role? And I think you ascertain that from the way you conduct yourself about your daily life, which I think is something we should also add to the coaching part of it.
My expression, my brand, they're all
Yeah.
privileges. Being a coach, being a personal trainer is a huge privilege, right? Somebody to come and say, hey, I want to be in shape and I trust you to get me there. I want you to train me.
Yep.
Like when I first started experiencing that 10, 12 years ago, when I got certified when I was 19, 20 years old. And I was like, man, people want to pay me to train them. Like, to me, that was overwhelming. That's a privilege. Same thing with fatherhood. That's a privilege. Those kids, man, that's God. Those are God's kids. Those are gifts. I just happen to have the privilege of being their dad. So
Wow.
I'm under the guidance of God, and I'm trying to make sure, that I'm carrying out this privilege in the most positive, right way that I can. So I think understanding and never getting away from what you're doing is a privilege. I think you should always, as a coach, understand that it's the same thing with fatherhood. It's a privilege, and
And
that'll kind of keep you squared away.
I think you do a phenomenal job at it. What a lot of people don't see that the hard work that goes on behind the scenes, or they call it the iceberg effect, right? You be able to see what's at the top. You don't see the failures and the suffering and the pain that it took to get the growth, to be able to see what's above the water. I think it shows that you have a huge, solid foundation that you continuously are molding and you use as your basis, both for your moral landscape and fabric going into the coaching, but also that you continuously get results. I think that's something that people should really take into consideration, especially because you have such great outlooks on it that you can show that it is possible to be balancing your responsibilities as a father, but also balancing a very, very demanding career, both in firefighting, but being someone's personal confidant when it comes to their fitness and nutrition. Since 19 years old, might I add, obviously people trust you to a huge extent. That leads me into one of the last things we're going to be talking about in this last segment is your philosophy in life. Outside the gym now, but the gym plays into a lot of our decision making, especially what you're doing most of the time, eating, the way you go about living your life. Let's talk about, what are some of your general outlooks on life? Just in general, we're just talking philosophy stuff here that makes you feel like your life is, that your purpose. So we go back to your why. What makes it so fulfilling doing what you're doing and how you go about your business?
Previously, that's constantly evolving. So my answer today will probably be completely different 2 years from now or 5 years from now, right? As it should be. It's changed dramatically, especially within this last year.
A lot going on.
Still don't have it figured out, but I've definitely identified how important patience is and delayed gratification is. Those two things are the things that I struggle with the most. I'm a very hard worker, and if it's something that I want it now. I'm gonna go do whatever it takes. And if I run in that circle over and over and over, and that needle doesn't move, oh man, talk about a not pleasant person to be around. So that's something that I had to self-identify and really work on and understand that things are delayed sometimes so things can come together better. And being okay with that. I think if I give people anything, I think that's something I would want people to take away from today's conversation is being okay with delayed gratification, being okay with everything not making sense right now because things are okay. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. We're all exactly where we're supposed to be, even if it doesn't feel like it, because that's something that's going to push you to where you're supposed to be. So you're still where you're supposed to be, if that makes any sense. So I think as far as lifestyle, being able to have the mental capacity to stay on task with day-to-day routine, as you mentioned, some of the stuff you go through, getting up, still being able to go to work, being a firefighter, still getting up, being able to hurt personal trainer, being there to serve people, being a dad. So you're constantly pouring. What I felt miserably at one point in life, probably within the last 2 years, and I'm doing better about it now, I didn't pour back into me enough because I'm so passionate and I want to do such a good job. And I'm so fascinated with my family and the fire department and personal training that I'm not, I'm just pouring gasoline, but I'm not fueling up. So eventually, guess what? That engine is going to lock up on you. And it's not gonna move like a well-oiled machine. So, and that can set you back. So I say pour into yourself. You know, talking to you, bro, man, bro, you've really shed light on that for me in my life, bro. And you display that example with yourself, even in conversation. Like it'd be little things, but I catch on you like, bro, I'm actually, not even talking about me particular, but you be like, hey, bro, I'm taking these 2 days just for me, and I'm unwinding. I'm going out to the lake, and I'm doing blah blah blah. Or sometimes I'll text you and it'd be on don't disturb. This is that. I was like, bro, Kia is not playing about, giving Kia time. And when I started doing it, giving Tyler time, I'm like, man, I'm so much better for everybody else. I feel refreshed and I don't feel burned out. And I can keep that fresh, get up and go passion and be pleasant for everybody. Because the last thing you want to do is just get down in a rut where you're not so pleasant to be around. Because that's not really you. That's tired you. That's exhausted you. But guess what? People like you for pleasant you, charge you. So, they don't, it's not their job to care. They're relying on you. So you have to make sure you're taking care of you so you can take care of them, because the last thing you want is the people you're supposed to be taking care of feeling like they need to take care of you. I know that might sound kind of off to some people, but in my opinion, I think it comes with the territory. And I'm okay with that.
I like that. Man, I think you put it beautifully, and bring this to a close here. You have any tips, any other closing thoughts that you want to share with people that might be beneficial, or anything in review here as we wrap up this last portion of the show?
What I've been seeing the majority of this session, man, just be okay with not having it all figured out right now. Because I think with the day and age and the time that we're in with social media, with all the influence and distraction and devices we have at our access these days, it's easy to get away from who we are as individuals and what really matter to us. So we'll end up taking on other people's perspectives and goals and feeling like, oh, I should be doing that, or I should be doing this. This is what's in. And you'll get lost. So if anything, just stay true to you. Don't lose yourself. Identify with yourself daily. Stay grounded. And enjoy the devices, but don't let the devices run you and shift you to something that you're not.
Man, I like that. You touched a little bit on it. The devices are good. They're good, but don't let them run your life. But if someone happens to be on a device and they want to find out more about Coach Tyler Jones and how they can get some one-on-one coaching with you, or find out about the next project you're doing, when can people see you back on stage? We see the gram, but when is the return of Tyler Jones coming? Or are you at liberty to talk about that?
I'm kind of in the process of figuring out my personal family situation. A lot of people want me to compete, and I love that a lot of people are anticipating me competing. Yeah. That feels amazing. But I'm going to be transparent. My kids are my why. That's my number one priority. And the last thing I want to do is look back on life and say, hey, I had a great bodybuilding career, but I didn't really focus on my why. And then later on in life, my why is away from me, but I had these accomplishments. What do they really mean if I don't really have my why? So to answer your question, I definitely would love to get back on stage. What that would look like, I don't know. I think I'll have a better gauge on that towards the end of this year, but I like to say 2025. If things go well, which I intend 2025, I plan on getting back on stage.
Okay. And if someone wants to reach out and find, I think the world's at your fingertips. You've gotten so much accomplished. It's only time to compile those wins, stack them up, and parlay them. I think you've got a huge, bright future, especially in the fitness space, but in some of the other things you're getting your hands into. And I think 2025 is going to be the year. Hopefully we see Tyler Jones back on stage, winning, taking down titles like he's done in the past. Is there an email address or a website that people can visit to find out more about you, or reach out?
So my Instagram is going to be FireTJones_816. Again, my Instagram is FireTJones_816. You can reach out to me on there, or my email address is very similar. It's FireTJones816@iCloud.com. You can shoot me an email. Right now, those are the best two ways to get in touch with me. I'm also on Facebook, Tyler Jones on Facebook. But those are good ways to kind of get in touch with me. I'm really good about responding. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Anything you want to go over, talk about, I'd be more than happy to help.
Or if they're here locally in the Kansas City area, they could stop by any Foundations locations, which there's one down in Westport, and they also have a location in Olathe, Kansas.
Yep, we also got one in Liberty. So 3 locations, Westport, Liberty.
We don't talk about anything north of the river. I don't even know that. I'm only kidding. Don't cancel me north of the river. Well, Tyler, man, thank you so much for coming on today's episode of Tautua Talk. Your journey, mindset, and dedication alone by themselves are truly inspiring. From dominating the NPC stage to making an impact in the fire service and being a devoted father, it's all incredibly motivating. To me, it is. I know it is for sure for some of you. As we close out, I want to take a moment to reflect on how everything we've talked about today really ties into something that's been a core part of my life. The fundamental principles of my culture. In my culture, the Samoan culture, we talk about Fa Samoa, or the Samoan way. It's all about service. Tautua, service to your family, your community. But like Tyler said, when you give, eventually you got to give back. Fill your own cup. So that service is also for yourself. That's something we practice every day in the fire service. From being there for our brothers and sisters and the community we serve, it's just like fitness. It takes dedication, discipline, and the willingness to push yourself to greater good. In fitness, we build our bodies and we strengthen our minds so we can live longer, healthier lives. But more importantly, so we can serve others at our best. Whether it's being there for your kids, your team, or your community, it all ties back to service. Service as a coach, and just like Tyler, service as a father. At the end of the day, fitness is more than just hitting the gym, lifting weights, right? It's about building the foundations for life. Just like the cultural values I was raised in, it's about respect, perseverance, and the balance of taking care of yourself both physically and mentally so you can be there for the people who depend on you. So, to all our listeners out there, remember, the work you put into yourself pays off in every aspect of your life. So stay dedicated, stay focused, and as always, in mind that there's another day. Tyler, again, thank you for sharing your journey with us. To everyone who's listening, be sure to drop by Tyler's socials like he had dropped earlier in the episode. We'll also provide a copy of that in the description, whether you're watching this on Spotify or YouTube or whatever platform it comes across. I'm going to provide you his contact information. Remember, he's also there at the Foundation's locations here in the Kansas City metro area, up north, the Westport location, but here in Johnson County, the Olathe location. And as always, I want to thank you for tuning in to Tautua Talk. This episode, if it does resonate with you, please subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, just like Tyler. It's Tautua, that's Tautua Talk, Talk. Or you can look us up on our website. That's tautuafitness.com. That's TAUTUAFITNESS.com. Search us up on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram too. It's the @ handle in Tautua Fitness, just like we spelled it out here a bit earlier. We also have a private Tautua Fitness community. And if you mentioned that you heard Coach Tyler Jones or myself on today's episode, we don't let everybody in. But if you mention you listen to the episode, we might just mention that you watched this episode, but also be sure to share it with somebody that might find it helpful. So until next time, this is Kia Tuala reminding you to stay strong, stay balanced, and keep serving. Tai Lava. Until next time, take care.